So hi, my name is Michelle. I also go by Niche as well. So just to introduce myself to you guys, pretty much I was at Cal Poly. I graduated in 2019. And I was majoring in liberal arts and engineering studies. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that major, but the best way to describe it is it's 60% engineering and 40% arts, and you get to pick and choose the classes you want to take. And I've always wanted to go into audio because I'm a musician and I also really like STEM. And I pretty much discovered that you can mesh the two together. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. That sounds really cool. So I ended up going into this major. And so my concentrations were electrical engineering. So I mostly did like the power electronics courses. I did the DSP roadmap as well. I went into a bit of mechatronics. I did a little bit of Python. And then for my liberal arts concentration, I was involved in more music. So I went into the sound design and the music theory background, but I also did a bit of communications as well as journalism while I was there. And then while I was in school, I got myself really involved in just like undergrad and things along that nature and just, you know, everything there is to be involved. So I actually was in KCPR. I had my own radio show there as well. And I was pretty much in charge of anything audio related. So the in-studios going on, or if they had any interviews going on, I was like splicing and editing audio bits of those. I also got myself involved in like AV teching, because the thing about audio is that it's super broad and there's so many different outlets you could go into. You could go into radio, you could go into like live audio in like mixing and mastering and stuff like that. You could go into the people who actually build the stuff that people twist knobs for. So while I was there, I was also involved at Bill Gaines Audio, BGA, as well as the ASI team, the AV team over there. Just doing a lot of like setup, breakdown, sound design for them as well. And then I also was pretty involved in the AES chapter, along with, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Nate or Anna Shabrova or Brian, but I worked with them. We all were like super close. I helped bring up the first AudioCon. We like networked with a ton of people and had that happen. So that was our little baby is the best way to put it. And then outside of Cal Poly, I was involved in two different organizations. I don't know if there's any ladies in the group, but there's this really cool organization called Sound Girls that I'm still a part of. And it's pretty much a coalition of female engineers and technicians all over the world. So it's a really cool support system and networking system to kind of get yourself familiar with other women in the industry. And I also was involved in an audio company, not an audio, excuse me, outside of audio. It was a company called Accessible Festivals that provides accommodations for people with disabilities at festivals. And so I got to go to a bunch of shows and I started like networking on top of, you know, helping people out. And it was a really, really fun experience. And right when I was about to graduate, I was kind of thinking to myself, what am I going to do next? And it's usually about these three options is what you most likely kind of think about. You either think about like getting a job immediately, or maybe like higher education or grad school, or like other, I don't know, maybe EE wasn't your thing and you actually wanted to go into knitting, or you wanted to explore the world. I don't know, but that's the other category. So I kind of chose that I wanted to go with the first option and just finding a job immediately. So right after school, I actually got a job as an engineering technician with a company called Sonos. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar, but they create internet like Wi-Fi speakers. So pretty much instead of being connected to Bluetooth, the speakers are connected to Wi-Fi around people's homes, businesses, things along that nature. When I was there, I was working as an engineering technician. So if the radio engineering team or the electrical or hardware verification, pretty much any hardware related team needed some sort of rework help or assembly issues. I was kind of like this, the best way to put it, the sous chef to the chef. So I got to learn a lot of very good technical experience over there in many different hardware disciplines. But I also simultaneously was doing a rotational program where I got to speak to a lot of these engineers and I got to work with these engineers. So I did some like psychoacoustic benchmarking for the audio team, but I also did like failure analysis for the sustaining team to see if there were any like electronic or mechanical issues with any products that like were brought back from customers. And so I was there for about a year. And then, you know, the pandemonium came around and I was part of a 12% layoff. And so I ended up leaving Sonos at July of 2020. And then I pretty much just kind of came back to this list again. And I was like, all right, what am I doing next? What am I thinking of? And when I was there, really noticed that I was really interested in the audio design of things, or at least the acoustic research side of stuff within the company. And I kept trying to apply for jobs like that, but they kept telling me I needed more experience. I didn't have enough experience. And like the education that I had at Cal Poly wasn't sufficient enough for the kinds of skills that are needed to be an acoustic engineer, in acoustic design, acoustic research engineering, acoustic systems engineering, any of those kind of like labels that you might have seen in applications and stuff like that was kind of the field that I was really interested in going into. And so I decided to go into the second option to pursue higher education, because I figured if no one's going to train me, then I'm going to train myself and I want to get that education. So I ended up applying and enrolling, and now I am enrolled in a program called IMDA. It is the International Master's Degree in Electroacoustics. How am I going on speed? Am I speaking really quickly? Am I okay? Just checking in.
No, you're doing great. I think if we have questions, we'll probably save them till the end. But
yeah, totally. We could do questions at the end. I'm more than happy. I just wanted to get a feel for how everything's going.
Sure. Yeah, we've got until the end of the hour, basically.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Perfect. So I'm going to talk a little about my program. I have been here since August of last year. So it's been a little about 6-7 months-ish. The program is located in France. So I am in a small city called Le Mans. If any of you guys have heard of like the 24-hour race that goes on here, apparently Matt Damon was in a movie with it. That's like the big thing. I don't know. I don't do race cars, but I do audio. So cool. So it's located in this city. I put out a really cute cathedral, and in the summertime they do this really cool projection mapping show that has music in it. So there's some cool little things. The best way I could describe the city is it's like Beauty and the Beast when Belle is walking around the village. That's what the old city kind of looks like over there. Think very, very French small city. It's about an hour on a bullet train from Paris. So it's not too far, but it's not too close either. So pretty much the program is focuses on a bunch of different subjects and different concepts that are pretty much the building blocks of speaker building, whether it's loudspeaker building or microphone building. And it goes through all of the major topics within it. So for example, it goes over, like, as I said, as it shows over here, it goes over electroacoustics, the mechanics and the materials. So we actually have a whole class on loudspeaker materials and like transducer materials and how they interact. We also have classes on like electric, mechanical, software and acoustic properties within a loudspeaker and how they all interact with each other. And we also have more like theoretical classes as well. Everything is taught in English, but the cool thing is that you're also meeting people from like all around the world, and everyone is just as passionate as you are about audio. I think that's probably been the most exciting part of this. But just to get a bit of like what the classes are like, what the courses are like, this is kind of like the big roadmap. So a lot of the courses kind of split into software, mechanical, like mechanical vibrations, acoustic theory, so think very, very physics heavy, as well as like electrical engineering portions, signal processing, like think the EE 419 courses, but very focused on audio and solely audio. So we do a lot of things with like FFTs and Fourier transforms and things along that. And we're working a lot with Python rather than MATLAB, because apparently there's a big shift in programming in Python rather than MATLAB. So the program is also very, very up to date with what's going on. On top of your courses, though, you actually have other types of projects as well. So the first project is in your first kind of like opportunity in your first year is your project. And so you pretty much get to build a prototype from scratch and work your way up. You get to work with the professors and you have a materials lab and you get to do like pretty much modeling, design, testing. And by the end of the 6 months, you'll have like a full product and you'll have a whole show and people from different companies will come and also look at your products and ask questions. Think of it kind of like a science fair, but everyone has built some sort of audio related product. And then the next year, your last year, you end up doing an internship. And so the internship is required and you can do it anywhere in the world, pretty much. One of the reasons that I applied to this program was because of the network. So the company works with an insane amount of companies that I'm pretty big fans of. I actually was recommended to this program by someone at D&B Audio Technic. They're a German-based company that make loudspeakers. And the facilities in general at this school are really, really dope. We've got multiple anechoic chambers on our campus. So we're regularly working with anechoic as well as semi-anechoic chambers. So we have like a product that we're trying to learn, maybe like the acoustic propagation of it, or like, you know, what are the characteristics of a vented versus an unvented box. But we also work with like a reverberant room. So like you'll see like the photo to the left is obviously an anechoic chamber and the one to the right is a reverberant room. So you hear all the reflections. And in this class specifically was a room acoustics class we had last semester. And we had white noise, we had pink noise going through the speaker, and we had to walk around and identify the modes within the room and where exactly were the modes and the anti-modes in the room. If any of this sounds interesting to you, by the way, there is a bit of a process on how to apply and how to get in. The first thing you want to do is send an email to this email right here. So it's imda-acoustics@univ-lemans.france. And then you'll be given a scientific test. So it's an online exam. It's about 3 hours long and 60 questions. And it goes over like matrix algebra, a lot of physics, some signal processing, some vibrations, like think like mass on a spring and how do they interact? Because at the end of the day, that's what a driver is. You got a mass and a spring and it's just going like this on the diaphragm. So the biggest drive for me was that they didn't really care too much about my grades there. And it was mostly this exam. So if you're thinking, oh man, Cal Poly is really hard, I have a 2.5 GPA, I'm not gonna be able to get in anywhere, you might want to reconsider because there are actually opportunities for you. And so if you pass the scientific test, you go to a motivation test, which is the best way to say it's an interview, but no one's actually interviewing you. You're just kind of writing down your answers. Things along like, what are you involved in? Why do you want to go in here? Do you play music? Like, what are your passions? What do you want to do after this program? You know, things along that nature. And then only then, once you pass those 2 exams, will you actually get an application. So you're wondering, Europe, why do I want to go all the way to Europe to study? There's actually many reasons why you'd consider it. I didn't consider it until it was recommended to me. And then I did a bunch of research on it and went, oh my God, this is actually a really cool opportunity, especially for Americans. For one, tuition, especially for grad school, is really expensive. When I was doing my research on grad school programs, schools like Penn State came up, as well as Johns Hopkins. And those schools are about between $30,000 to $50,000 a year. I am paying 250 euros for my education. So that equates to about $300 a year just on my studies. So that's a really, really big reason to consider it. It is super cheap, and the money that you would be spending on your education in the States, you could spend literally traveling around Europe, because I'm in France, I'm close to Italy, I'm close to Germany, I'm close to Spain. You're so close to so many different places that it's kind of like a 2-in-1 bucket list. Might as well finish grad school and travel while at it. You'll also, the thing that's really interesting for me, at least in being in France, is that I am in a new place. I am learning French. I never thought I would do that. I'm interacting with people from a very different culture than me. And it's really humbling and interesting to witness yourself learning and going around with that very different type of culture and learning about other types of cultures as well. Also, the global networking opportunity is huge. In that list that I mentioned, Acoustics is on that list. Cal is very well networked within my program. I actually have a friend who's doing his internship there right now. So if some of these companies that you've been fangirling about, that you're like, oh my God, they make such cool products, I wish I could even potentially, help with design, research, test these types of products, that is an opportunity if you actually do end up doing a graduate program in Europe. Also, within the States, you might see a program and be like, oh, this isn't exactly what I want to do. Because I, for example, wanted something that was a little more industry focused, and something that I was like, I'm going to have actual hands-on work. And so most of my classes have supplemental labs, and we're doing a lot of very specific types of work within our labs as well that are really helpful. And the one big thing that I'm super thankful for is being able to go into a chamber, gather data, post-process it into Python, and then look at the modes, the acoustic properties, take an FFT of that and see what exactly are the characteristics of the prototype or whatever I'm experimenting on. And another thing is a sense of independence. You're going to be here on your own, and it's a whole new experience, and you're just going to have to kind of figure out everything for yourself. How are you going to eat? How are you going to, that whole rush of doing something so new and out of your comfort zone. Also, the education system works differently. So if you're not a big fan of taking only 3 to 5 classes and needing to get a C or above, I have about 12 classes and they're all pass fail. So if that sounds more attractive to you, then you might consider going into a school outside of the States, because every single country has a different grading system on how they do things. Also, because I have a student visa, I have health insurance, I get housing aid from the government. There's a lot of big benefits that you do get having a visa from a European country. These are some universities that I didn't necessarily apply to, but I did look into them and they look really cool. So if you are not necessarily thinking, I want to go into a small city in France, these universities have been recommended to me, and I've also done a lot of research on them, and they're very similar to the kind of program that I'm in. So very electroacoustic, mechanical software kind of bunched up. Things I wish I knew. I just felt like adding this because now that I've been kind of in it for half a year, it's good to kind of get that advice, especially someone that's been literally in your shoes. I graduated. You do graduate. I promise it happens. It happens. I remember I was like, oh my God, I'm graduating. That's weird. I thought I'd be at Cal Poly forever. But the few things that I've learned out of this whole experience is the way universities works. As I mentioned, in general, every university is different and every country ranks its students differently as well. If you don't like Greek life, it doesn't exist here, which I think is fantastic. Also, everyone's path looks different. Like when you graduate, people are going to go and do other paths. I mean, just thinking of my friends that were in AES, everyone has done something very different and has had very different experiences. Like I know someone that's working at a startup. I know someone that's been Anna, my friend Anna Shabrova has been at Harmon literally since she graduated. So everyone has their own paths. I ended up going into grad school. So it's hard to compare yourself to others, but there's no need to because everyone's path looks differently. If you are thinking of doing this later, like you're like, oh, I already have an offer somewhere and I want to work and maybe I'll come back to grad school, it'll be hard to go back. I will say that it is really hard to go back, but it's really, really worth it. And this experience is very enriching. Time manage. I know right now, for example, I'm in a different city. I'm in a city called Angers because actually my electrical engineering classes are in a different campus than my actual campus. And so my university partners with a university in Angers to provide those courses for me. So it's all about like balancing. It's like, you got to balance how you're going to eat. You got to balance how you're going to clean your space, how you're going to do, when are you going to do your classes? When are you going to, work on, the French bureaucracy of it, or just in general, it's all about balance in school and everything. It's all about balancing your time between social, academic, and then your own self-care. And research is everything. If you're interested in a topic or a company or a program or something along that nature, like research. My comms 101 professor was obsessed with research. And I remember being like, this guy is nuts, but he was totally right. It's all about research. The only reason I've been able to get to where I am in the middle of France is literally because of research. My LinkedIn is on the left if you want to scan and like add me on there. I was debating on adding my email, but I was like, there's no need to, just like connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to send me a DM, feel free. And then the website for IMDA is on the right. So it'll have all of the information on the courses and some projects that other students have done in the past and things along that nature. And then if we want to just like transition to questions, I'd be more than happy to.
Totally, yeah. We'll open it up for questions. Anyone's got anything they're kind of curious about?
I was wondering if you could go more into about how you chose the Lamont University opposed to other ones.
Can you hear that, or
No,
if you could expand? Yeah, if you could expand on like how you ended up choosing Le Mans versus other
universities. So it's as simple as it was the first one I applied to, but because I did like a ton of research prior. But the reason I found out about the program in general is actually I went to NAM. I think this was like 2019, 2018. I don't remember which NAM it was. And I connected with DNB Audio Technic. And I pretty much was like, can I work for you guys? Can I just work in Germany? Is that possible? And so they were like, I mean, kind of, yeah, you need like, here, get my email, let's chat. It's like, okay, cool. So they connected me with someone named Elena. And I had a Zoom call with her. This was like still when I was at Cal Poly. And I was asking her about the possibility of working in Germany and working for DNB. And she pretty much told me that the only way and the only possibility to work in Europe would be to be a grad student. And so I said, okay, if I wanted to go into my master's, what programs do you recommend? And so she personally recommended my program, as well as DTU, Technical University of Denmark. It just happened to be that the deadline for IMDA last year was in May. And then I found out I was going in June. And then I moved here in August. Like it was that fast.
I'm curious, you mentioned that there was a scientific test that you had to take. So you had been out of school for a while. So like, is there a way to prep for that? Or is it just kind of like, you see what you know?
So I did a bit of prepping myself. I kind of went over, what were the big things I went over? We didn't really do much matrix algebra in the math series at Cal Poly. So for that, I mostly looked up online, like different matrix algebra notions and notations and things along that nature. But simple like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division in matrices kind of does it for that. For the vibrations portion, I actually didn't necessarily figure out what exactly to research. And also the thing as well is that if you're thinking, oh my God, I need to score an amazing grade on this, the French system of 50% is passing. So if you get a 50% or above, you're fine. So I think I scored like a 65 or something like that. So I went over like my DSP notes. I did a bit of like matrix algebra review, like just going online and Googling, you know, the keywords and studying that was kind of my best bet. But because they're all evenly spread, if you're like really solid in DSP and like matrices and like vibrations, so like forces, mass, acceleration, you'll most likely do okay. Like you just won't pass if you get under a 50%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what classes, because you mentioned you did the DSP track, but like what classes would you say were like the best ones for you to focus into kind of like acoustic based stuff while you were at Cal Poly?
The best acoustic based programs at Cal Poly, I would say. So I took the EE 228, 328, 419, keep it, do it. It's great. It's such a good roadmap. And Pilkington's the best. Like he's just such a good professor and he just knows how to teach it. Don't do it with anyone else but Pilkington. That's my only advice. Like take off a semester and a quarter and do it with Pilkington. Any electronic based courses are really great. So like power electronic courses. I took 321, which was like a very simple course on very simple topics, but that's still very, very helpful. There is a portion on circuit analysis on the exam as well. And that's where I mostly excelled because of all the circuit analysis I have. So we go over things, you know, we go over BJTs and MOSFETs and power amplifiers, diodes, things, all that stuff is very, very handy and very useful. I'm trying to think of other courses that were very handy. I know that there is a, oh my God, I'm forgetting the name of the class, but there was some sort of class with like Arduino. I remember it being very difficult and I don't remember the name of the class. Yeah, I don't remember the name. I'm like thinking of the roadmap, but these are like classes I wish I took is the best way to put it. But anything within Arduino, things like that, Raspberry Pi, take it. That stuff is so helpful. And find some physics classes on like optics. I don't know if that still exists at Cal Poly. I know I wasn't actively looking for physics courses, but physics is very, very helpful, especially if you could get anything within Helmholtz resonators, optics, acoustic radiation, stuff like that. Very, very helpful stuff. There's some statistics classes at Cal Poly. I didn't end up taking them, but I know they're very helpful on audio. I don't remember which ones. And I would also take an ME class. Oh, dynamics and statics. That stuff comes back. I know that we're all EEs and we didn't think that was necessary for audio, but if you take them, it's very, very beneficial. So that's where I've been very much lagging is statics, dynamics, things like that, which I know exists at Cal Poly and I was too scared to take them. So coming from someone who's doing her master's, they are helpful.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. I got one other question, which is just, you were showing like a lot of the different projects and stuff that you've done of like testing acoustic modes in rooms and like using anechoic chambers. And
yeah,
the situation at Cal Poly is still not changed. We don't have a lot of those facilities for doing that sort of thing. So I'm curious, are there any like, I guess, simpler projects that you can think of that you've done or something like equivalent that would be good for people to do, like if they're here and don't have access to like
go Google Kirby meets audio, go Google all that kind of stuff and just build speakers. Get your, what's it called? Your red tack, I think they're called. I don't remember what they're called. Where
Yeah.
you could go to the hangar and use the machine shop, learn that stuff, learn about, you know, woodworking, machine working. That stuff is extremely helpful. And build a speaker. There's some really good software. I know Room EQ, REW, Room EQ Wizard is a very helpful product when it comes to getting a driver with the different parameters, because that's also a thing that's not taught at Cal Poly. We don't know what like TS parameters are, or like looking at a spec sheet of a driver and understanding what exactly each one means. So I would recommend looking into that, reading up on that, knowing what, you know, a QES, QMS, QTS, the different compliance, mechanical, compliance, movement, stuff like that, MMS, CMS, all those different acronyms. Go learn them, read up on them. But yeah, build a speaker. That's my biggest advice. Build a speaker. You'll learn so much. And there's some very good resources online. And if you don't want to go on videos, LinkedIn is your best friend. Just look up anyone and ask them for advice. And most likely people are more than happy to help, especially if they see that you're interested and you want to learn.
Well, yeah, well, that's actually good news, because that's probably what we're going to start doing next quarter, is getting more into that side of things and like actually building something there. So yeah,
build a speaker, do it, build a speaker. It's beyond helpful. You'll learn so much.
Cool. Do we have any other questions? Anyone think of anything they wanted to ask? All right. Oh, yeah.
For like finding opportunities, like the cheese and stuff like that. What exactly do we look up on Google?
Yeah, what do you look up exactly to find opportunities like the program that you're involved in? Like, what would people Google search for?
I looked up acoustic grad school. Literally. I Googled it, and then all of a sudden I found this list of like different acoustic grad schools all over the world. There's some in Canada, there's some in the UK, there's some in Australia, like there's some really all over. And just literally Google, just do your research. You can even look up, you know, a company. So like go by the tree, go on LinkedIn. What company are you interested in? Look up what person has a role that you'd be interested in pursuing. Click on their profile and see what their education looks like. And if you're extra curious, just message them, just connect with them. I think like most of the people I'm connected with on LinkedIn, I've never met, literally. Like, just if a little bit of internet stalking is not a bad thing.
We're quoting that out of context.
Huh? Oh yes,
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that speaks volumes of like, it is, a lot of this stuff is like, you could find out about it, but a lot of people just don't, because it takes some investment
effort
to like, yeah, go and find these sorts of things. But
yeah,
a little bit of research is worth a lot.
A little bit of research is worth a ton. And if you're going to go into audio, you're going to be doing a ton of research, and you're going to be reading a ton of AES articles, and it's going to be a lot of reading on a computer. I hate to say it, but if you're not looking for a job where you just stare at a computer a lot, this is not it, because you're staring at a computer a lot. You're doing a lot of DSP work. I mean, there is a lot of hardware stuff where you do things outside of that, but it's also a lot of like reading and programming and simulations and things like that. So Google's your best friend. Just do the research. Just do the first step. You don't have to do so much. One step is already enough. It'll keep you going.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Mish. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and thanks for taking the time to put this together, explain everything, because I know a lot of people, I mean, raise your hand if you knew about any of this stuff. Kind of, okay, we got one person who's done research kind of on it, so awesome. But yeah, so I mean, it's helpful to know, so thank you again.
Absolutely. And if any of you guys have any other questions, really, like, just feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to answer them. Like, whenever, wherever you are in life, like, feel free to just add me. I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell me, she's super nice, so she will definitely respond. Awesome. All right, well, great. Thanks. What time is it there? I guess it's late, but
I think it's like
yeah.
9.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah,
have a
it's
good
almost
night.
9 o'clock. Thank you. I'm gonna keep hanging out, just chilling out before I have to design filters, because that's what I do.
Gotcha. All right.
All
Thanks.
right. Bye, guys.
Thank you.